if you think about it, it's like when people go into a bar and a young man wants to go talk to a young lady, or a young lady wants to go talk to a young man. What do? They have to have a drink first because there's fear, right? We allow our minds to get in front and cause fear first, and then we think that having that drink loosens us up, right? Or whatever it may be. And then, or we take a pill to like make us feel happy, so that loosens us up to get to a point where we can talk to people. Welcome to Kaizen Kast, episode number 2, small steps, big changes. Today's topic that I want to cover is about communication. It's such a big part of our life that I feel like we miss out on. People don't do a great job of communicating. For instance, I'm just going to give you last week's episode. If you saw my body language, if you saw the way I was talking, I'm trying to be a little bit more upbeat and positive because that's really who I am. But last week I was really, really tired. I was down. I spoke from the heart. I will always speak from the heart. But I was having a rough week. So I want you all to know that I'm human. Anything I talk about is literally from the heart. I'm not taking a shot at anybody. It's how I feel. So that part of it is 100% true. So today, what I'm talking about with communication was, and I want you to understand, we all have these feelings in life. Every single day we go through it. We have highs and lows, and last week I was having a rough time of just dealing with my stress, anxiety, and you probably might have seen that in my body language and how I was acting in the podcast, because I didn't get great sleep last week. I was tired, I was stressed. I've been stressed about life, basically, money, my kids. We're in the process of selling our house, a lot of things. And then, I want to share something that's really, really important with me. It also is something hard to talk about, but which I never thought I would ever do in my life, is actually speak to somebody, speak to a therapist. And let me give you a little background on that. I finally, my wife said to me, she's like, you know what? With all the stuff that you've put yourself through, it might be great to try to talk to somebody about your anger, about your emotional roller coaster swings you have. So I said to her, you know what, I will definitely do this, but here's what I want from you. I want you to find me somebody that does not have doctor attached to their name, and not that there's anything wrong with the doctors that help people in this world. I just, for me personally, wanted somebody that was more in tune to how I dealt with stuff and how I went about my life, be like almost like they did the same thing. I'm not saying there aren't doctors out there that have gone through this situation like I have of overcoming opioids and drinking and all that stuff. But I really wanted somebody that actually could dig deep, that actually had already done it. And my wife found somebody fantastic, my therapist. And every time I speak with him, he always puts things in perspective. And one of the most important things that I learned was that at that point in my time, there was no reason, just we're going through changes in our life. And the changes in my life that I've made over the last year and a half, I think are incredible. The timeline that I've done it in, and even it's probably been about, the total time has been about 4 years with the no drinking. Again, that whole timeline has been about 4 years, but everything that I'm doing to change my way of thinking towards each and every day. And what I realized through this whole process last week, the reason why I was tired and angry and anxious was because I was leaning on the negatives. I don't know why I do it. I don't know why I lean towards that. I think that's what got me through life, that I always had to overcome everybody thinking that I couldn't do it, that I would always prove somebody wrong, instead of actually taking a minute to enjoy, like I tell my kids, stacking up the W's throughout the day. I actually was really, really in a place that made me think back to maybe about 7, 8, 9 years ago, where I was making tons of money, and I was doing irrational things and not happy, but I was making tons of money. And I'm thinking to myself today, or this was last week, wow, I'm working harder than ever, not a ton of money coming in. I feel like I'm getting hit from all angles. And I reverted back in my head to like, wow, that was so much easier when I was acting like an asshole and doing stupid shit and the money was pouring in. But that's not really the answer. That's not how you overcome adversity. That was me self-destructing. And for whatever reason, just like I want people to understand, this is not an easy thing. But to overcome anything, whether it's drinking, whether it's a fear of heights, whether it could be anything in your life. But if you communicate with people and you talk to people and you tell people how you feel and they actually understand and they're like-minded like you are and they follow what you're talking about, like my therapist does. And trust me, I'm not an easy one to follow when it comes to all the thoughts that go through my head, because they don't stop. And I think that has a lot to do with me trying to please people, but I also want to please myself, and I never want to let anybody down. With that being said, I also know that it's super important that I take a step back and stop focusing on the things that I can't control and control what I can. And last week was one of those weeks where I looked back and I was like, wow, life seemed so much easier when I was out of control and doing stupid shit. And it just seems like right now that no matter which way I go, it's getting a little bit harder, but life's not that hard. We create that. That was me being a negative person and not being super positive. And that's the hard part for me, is it's harder to be super positive every day than it is to dwell on the past and look back and be like, well, I had this and I had that, and I had X amount of dollars and now I don't. All that stuff doesn't matter. It really doesn't. What matters is that we're healthy, we can be happy, we have great people around us. I use my energy towards my family and my kids. That kind of stuff goes a long way, and that's what makes you a better person. And the only way you can do that, I think, outside of, and again, I'm not saying that people don't need medicine, but outside of taking medicine, is doing stuff for yourself, going to the gym, but also talking to people about this stuff. Because once you talk about it and get it off your chest, okay, now we can move on to the next thing. And what I really have to remember is focusing on the positives. Every day, I tell my kids all the time, over the last year and a half, my whole baseball career, I did nothing but focus on the negatives. And I did so many positive things throughout that time that I never took a second to actually enjoy those. Never took a second. You know what? My whole baseball career in college, you know what it was? I said it was a failure because I didn't get drafted. Well, that's shame on me, because I had so many great memories. I had so many, and I forgot a lot of them because I focused on the one thing that didn't come true, which was me not getting drafted. And I kind of, over the last 25 years, maybe even longer, maybe it's 30 something years, I kind of remember even being a little kid doing that. I would win an MVP or win a championship and be like, okay, well, I got to go win another one. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have that drive, but you also have to understand that to do that kind of stuff, you have to enjoy it. And I'm not saying harp on it and be cocky about it, but you have to take a second and enjoy the moment. And I never stack those little W's. And this is what I tell my kids over the last year and a half, is that it's super important to stack W's. The smallest ones is just getting up in the morning and making your bed. That's a W right off the bat. Because I'm guaranteeing you that more than half the country doesn't make their bed when they wake up. And that's something it's just a simple little thing. A simple little thing of making your bed first thing in the morning. And guess what? You accomplished something. And you started with a W every single morning. It doesn't matter if you're tired. It doesn't matter if you're wide awake. You just make your bed. And before you know it, you have one W under your belt. And that's what I've learned too. Over the last 2 years, that's what I've been doing every single day. And I just shared that with my nephew, and he goes, you know what? I think I'm going to start doing that. So these little things that I think about, I have to say out loud. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to be a little bit more upbeat today and a little bit more positive, because I don't ever want my message to feel like, oh, woe is me, and this is that. That's not. I'm truly blessed to be here. I'm truly blessed that I'm able to do this, that I have a great support system around me, even starting with my audio-visual person, Ethan, who is a tremendous, I mean, we ran into a situation right here today that our audio wasn't working, but guess what? He had options. He had a backup situation for us, and he knocked it out of the park, and here we are. That's a W. Those little W's in life that we don't even think about, and we harp on the negative. Not really sure why we do that. It's something to me that, and maybe a lot of people don't do it. Maybe it's just me. Maybe that's just me being me, and that's why I'm really talking about this. But I think there's a lot of people out there that do that, is as successful as they can be, or maybe they're not maybe not living to their full potential because of that. And that's something that I need to do a better job of. And that's why I wanted to share that part of you with me, share this part today with you about communication. Because I feel like once you can talk about it, and then I think there's a time where then you have to go and do it. But what people do is they get stuck in the same rut. And it's like, and again, I'll go back to the opioids. Your body starts wanting that opioid, right? But like in the beginning, it's just part of your everyday routine. So we make our routines based off of, or happy hour, that whole word happy hour. Oh, let's go have a drink at happy hour. It becomes everybody's routine after work. Let's go grab a couple beers. Let's go. Why? Because it feels good, or you get to let loose. But at the end of the day, we're just masking all that because we're not facing really what we want to do. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't have fun. Listen, I had a lot of fun too. I mean, don't get me wrong. And again, I do everything to the 100th power. So my fun was, very high at times too. So like, I don't want you to think that I'm just like straight-laced guy and doesn't like to have fun. But it's, to me, I feel like we put these quotes or we make up these sayings that make us feel better. I think what most people are truly afraid to talk about their feelings. And that's why we hide behind whatever it may be. If you think about it, it's like when people go into a bar and a young man wants to go talk to a young lady, or a young lady wants to go talk to a young man, what do? They have to have a drink first because there's fear, right? We allow our minds to get in front and cause fear first, and then we think that having that drink loosens us up, right? Or whatever it may be. And then, or we take a pill to like make us feel happy. So that loosens us up to get to a point where we can talk to people, right? That's all in our mind, I believe. And I'm not saying that, again, not a doctor. And I'm not saying there isn't mental health out there either, right? So I get it that some people do have to take medicine for mental health, but a lot of us mask the fear and the problem with some sort of medication or drink or whatever it may be. But I do believe that there is a lot of people out there that actually have that first, like, it's hard for them to get that first word out about anything. Never mind to ask somebody out on a date or anything like that. Or I know I'm outdating myself because I'm old, but like people don't ask on a date. You guys, it's a little different way of life now. But the just to get something out of their mouth that actually is personal people would rather make up a story, I feel like, and paint a different picture about their life than to be honest with the person they're talking to. And this is why I really think that me doing this is I'm living proof that like I got nothing to hide. Like I've made tons of mistakes in my life. I make a mistake every day. And what I want to do is correct it. And the people that can step up and take accountability for their mistakes and fix them are the ones who are going to succeed even further. And that's really why communication is so important, because of the lack of, what's the word? The lack of almost the respect for themselves to make them feel like a bigger person or better, or like their ego better. That's all, to me, that's all bullshit. Like, the realer you are as a person, the more real you are as a person, to me, those are the people I gravitate towards too. My buddy who just retired from the MLB, I had dinner with him the other night, and he's one of the most real. I don't want to say anybody's name at this point until I speak to them and ask them if my goal is to have all these people on as guests. But when I had dinner with him the other night, he is blunt as blunt can be. And he grew up in a tough way of life, tough neighborhood. He came from nowhere, and he ended up being he was the number 1 pick overall in the draft at one point. And again, I'm not going to give you the year, because then you're going to know who it is. So I'm going to save that for another time. But he says it. He goes, I will tell your son, I will tell your daughter. He goes, I shoot right from the hip. I don't pull any punches, and neither do I. And I think one of the things that I was so upset with myself with is because I was hiding behind this anger, this fear, of worrying about how everybody else was going to perceive me, because I guess deep down inside, I didn't feel good about myself because of, again, the one thing that I didn't accomplish in my life before I was, 23 years old was to get drafted. But all the things I did prior to that were truly amazing. And I couldn't see past that point in my life. And I think sometimes we get hung up on that, and that's what causes us to go down these paths that are self-destructive. And again, over and over again, I think that for me, balance in life, understanding how happiness really works, right? That negative feeling of not getting drafted, it was my coach's fault. It was and I start pointing fingers at others. It was nobody else's fault except mine. Truly my own fault. And things didn't go my way, but instead I acted like a spoiled little brat, and really, instead of just doing what I usually do, take accountability for my actions, I rolled it into anger. And I already have anger issues that I work on, but like that created a big snowball effect for me to go on for the next 15 to 20 years of being just angry and making believe that on the outside, I'm still that person, love being around people, super generous, but inside everything was eating me up day in and day out. And I put myself in bad situations, almost like on purpose. Sometimes I think about it now. Like, I'll sit here today with my dogs in a peaceful place, and I'll think back of the chaos that I was in, and all because of me. Created by me. No one else. No, I can't point any fingers at anybody. I'm not saying that, listen, nobody's perfect. You put yourself in situations, you meet people, maybe you're not supposed to be with those people, and in situations for business, right? Even that situation that happened. But things happen for a reason. And I realized that most of the problems that were created by me. And now I work on it to not put myself last, to build happiness with balance. Not everything's all about how much money I made. I told you guys this over and over again. It's been almost 3 years that I haven't made money. And yeah, do I get stressed? Absolutely. That's what I was having last week. I was explaining to you that I was a little bit down, a little bit stressed. But I always want to come and talk to everybody about how, and that's why I said I wanted this week to be about how I was feeling last week and how I've overcome that. And literally, one of my biggest fears, which I never thought I would do, was talk to a therapist. And honestly, he's like a good friend now. He's somebody I trust. He's somebody that when I lean on, and I know this sounds like not tough or anything, like not being a tough guy, but like truthfully, he's a guy that I could call at any time and he can turn my day around instantly. I'm blessed he's in my life. I say that every time. He's another man that I actually I admire. You know why? Because he's beaten cancer twice. And he didn't even stop his job this past time he had brain cancer. He took, to have basically his head opened up. He was awake for it. They had to take a tumor out by his brain. And he was back working while he was doing this major radiation to make sure that the cancer doesn't come back. He worked all through this. That's my hero. Not the guy who's worth $100 billion and has 4 jets. And when I was younger, those were my heroes for whatever reason. I thought I was supposed to live in a 20,000 square foot home and have maids and people that waited on me hand and foot. And now I'm in a different stage in my life that actually like helping people is really what I want to do. And I'll give you one more example of that. Actually, I have a couple examples left. Yesterday, I barely ever eat ice cream anymore. I dropped my son off at a jump house, a Sky Zone, and he had 2 hours with his buddy, and I was like running around. I went and got the car washed, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go grab some ice cream. Never been to this ice cream shop. And I ran into 2 people that were like-minded like myself. I spent 15 minutes with them, made my day. It was awesome, an older couple. The gentleman was a Vietnam vet, absolute stud, unbelievable shape, in his mid-70s, like somebody that I admire. We had a great conversation. I had to run to go pick up my son, and I'm walking out, and sure enough, I don't know if it was a calling from God or whatever, this homeless man came up to me and asked me for money. And I was getting in my truck, and I saw him, and he started like to beg, and I was like, no. And he got very upset at me, to the point where I was almost like upset at him because he was mad at me. And then I took a deep breath and I was like, man, I always think my life's so hard. I don't know what happened to this guy. I don't know what. Most time when people are homeless, there's usually, they don't use the money for food. They usually use it for drugs or alcohol, and they're not looking to get better, right? Because they're in that vicious cycle that I was in for so many years. But I was lucky enough to have enough money to hide it and mask it and do all that shit. A lot of these people don't have that ability. So instead of getting angry, which I did for that split second, I actually got out of the truck and I sternly called the gentleman back over after he cursed me out. And I said, first of all, you don't talk to me like that. And I go, second of all, I'm going to give you $10. And I know it's not a ton of money, but I'm going to give you $10 and I want you to use this for food. And there was a restaurant right in there. I said, I'll go in there with you. I said, but you are not going to use this for alcohol and you're not going to use this for drugs. And he walked into and he thanked me over and over again. He said he tried to get into the church and they wouldn't let him in. And again, there might be some mental health there too. So again, not a doctor, don't know. But I thought it was the right thing to do. And he actually did go into the restaurant and he ordered some pizza. So that was some calling for me to do something like that. I have these situations that come upon me all the time. And I think that happens because I don't know why. I think I'm supposed to do it. Like and I probably give too much money to homeless people that probably are using the money for drugs, but I don't care. If I can help them just in that split moment to just make their day a little bit better, because I realize that my life is damn good. It's really, really good. And I'm blessed that I'm still here to even talk about it. So that was one situation. And another situation that actually, this one really touches home, because I lost my dad to lung cancer, as you know that. And my buddy John, who was a retired cop in his mid-70s, who I met at the gym actually at LA Fitness. He's an amazing person, because I didn't know for the longest time he was battling cancer. And as you guys all know, I lost my dad to lung cancer on my birthday. So it's always hard to talk about, but it's always a conversation that needs to be talked about, because this guy, holy shit, you would never know he had cancer. And first of all, he's been going through radiation, and he doesn't even take his treatments here in Florida. He flies back up to Jersey, where he's from, because that's where all his doctors are. And he's been doing this crazy radiation and chemo and all these different treatments. And while he's doing that, he's still getting in the gym. The guy is superhuman. And, you know, one of my friends in the gym, a younger gentleman who's more like my son's age, in his mid-20s, actually used to work out with him a lot before he had to leave to go back and forth to Jersey for this, because the cancer has gotten worse. He told me at Easter that he was not doing great. And I said to him, I go, you know what, I have to call him on Easter. And I don't know why I didn't. It wasn't because I was afraid to call him. I can always talk to anybody. I don't care if I cry. I don't care if whatever. I should have called him. And for some reason it slipped my mind. Well, guess what? He called me. And he sounded pretty beat up, but he was still upbeat. And I'm thinking to myself, good Lord, I'm being negative, I'm being selfish, I'm being all these things. And I'm healthy, I'm strong, I got money in my pocket, I'm living my life in the most beautiful state. And I'm like, why are you harping on the negatives? This guy's trying to hang on to his life. And guess what? He's still getting in the gym every day. That's truly amazing to me. And he's 70 something years old. 76, 77, somewhere around there. He's battling cancer like no other person I've ever seen outside my father. And trust me, I'm sure there's a gazillion people that are battling it super, super hard, and God bless them. And I hope there's a cure at some point for everybody, because it's a horrible, horrible disease. But that just led me into like thinking about, why are you being so negative? And why are you harping on the negative stuff? And why are you thinking back to like your times of, when you were running around and doing bad shit, but the money was coming in? That doesn't mean that you're doing the right thing. Just because the money's coming in and you're still doing horrible things doesn't mean that you're doing the right thing for yourself or your family. So you have to take one step back and always think, God, it could always be worse. It could always be worse. And what we create in our own minds is usually all that negative shit. Well, at least for me anyways. Again, there's a lot of people out there that are super, super positive, and I guarantee you this, they're probably some of the most successful people you've met. And the people that even waffle back and forth, because that's what I still do, I'm still not reaching my full potential of being as successful as I can be, but I will be. I promise you that I will be, because I'm gonna get better at this, just like I've done everything else in my life. It's taken me a long time to understand that, but I definitely will. I promise you all that. So someone asked me, how did you find your therapist so quickly? And well, through the grace of God, I don't know how this happened, but Lori, my wife, found someone that wasn't a doctor, and she gave me the number, and she's like, you need to call and see if you can get an appointment. Well, I'm a pretty good salesman, so when I called, I spoke to the young lady in their office, and I said, I see that this gentleman is a therapist. I really could use his help, for my anger. I just punched the door. This is a true story. I did. I punched the garage door, which I thought was wood, but it was metal, and I thought I broke my hand. And I told her the story, but I said, I'm actually here to tell the story because I'm alive and I'm actually okay, but I need to work on this, and I would really love to speak to John. And she goes, oh, okay, hold on. I have an appointment for you on Thursday. And I said, okay, great. So my first phone call with John, he said to me, how did you even get an appointment? And I was like, why? He's like, I'm backed up for 2 years. He's like, how did you even fit in my... I'm like, I told the young lady my problems and my schedule, and she's like, I think John would be perfect for you. You should talk to him. Here's his, here's the time and date. And I'm like, from that point on, we hit it off. His son played college baseball. He loves baseball. It was almost like a calling from God and everything we relate can go back to something that we both understand. It's an easy conversation, and it puts my mind at ease. And sometimes I think I can help him too. I think he enjoys speaking to me. He talks to people all over the world. He is truly a blessing from God, and I got lucky, I guess you want to say. I think somebody upstairs was like, yeah, you need to speak to him, and I'm not letting go of him. So at some point, really what my goal is, and I told everybody this, is to now have people come on to the podcast, and either, we do it remotely, via Zoom, and, but we do it live, or we have them actually come into the studio here and we sit down face to face and we have a little interview, a little talk. And he would be one of my first people that I would love to have on. So yeah, that's where we're hopefully going with this next few episodes, if we can get that done. So I really look forward to seeing everybody again and sharing my stories. Hopefully I've touched a few hearts today. And obviously it's when we're up and running with social media, and if we ever get live, we could always take questions, and Ethan obviously will help us with that and help me with that going forward. And I really, really look forward to helping others in this situation. Like I said, there's a part of me that I lived a life that I was so selfish, that I was so consumed with myself in my one failure. And it wasn't even a failure. It's just that I didn't reach a goal. That happens every single day. Every day of our lives, there's going to be something that we didn't get to. But if we strive to work harder, other doors are open. And that's the most important thing. If you keep pushing through and you stack the W's, I tell them, stack the small W's. Because the small W's then end up turning into big W's. And before you know it, you're stacking something every day. I look at the greatest athletes, and again, some of you young guys are going to tell me that LeBron's better than Jordan. Not true. They're both great, but Jordan's my era. He's the man. Brady, they what they did every single day? They stacked W's. They stacked them. And they always found the positive, and they outworked everybody. And I have that ability to outwork everybody. I just didn't know how to stack the W's, and that's what I'm learning to do. And that's what I'm sharing with my kids. And I really think that when you're able to do something like that, your life becomes pretty simple and easy. And we're really meant for routine. Like I said, our whole life is based around routine, whether that's positive or negative. Think about it. People go into a routine, and you know what? After work, I'm supposed to go have a few drinks. That's a routine. It's happy hour. They just make it sound cool, and then there's music, and then we're going to hang out with friends. It's a routine. Before you know it, you're doing it 4 or 5 days a week. And guess what? You might be putting on 10 or 15 pounds by the end of the 2 months because you're in not a great routine. Instead of being like, my routine is after work, I'm going to the gym. I'm going to burn some calories. I'm going to burn some steam off. And that's a positive routine. Guys like Jordan, guys like Brady, those guys, there's a million unbelievable athletes that go through this that'll tell you their routine was always ending with positives. Started the day with positives, ends with positives. And in between, I'm sure there were some negatives, but they did not let that stop them. And that's the most important thing. And that's something that I really, 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 really harp on today, because it's important to me, especially for my kids. And they are getting the best version of me right now, to understand that that is the most important thing. Happiness is created by how we are around others and how we handle ourselves through adversity. So working towards that is always a work in progress, but getting in great routines and communicating with people is some of the most unbelievable things that will create happiness. This episode is coming to an end, and I just want to end with basically a little recap of, it's super important to communicate, super important to try to stack those small W's, and it's super important to create happiness along the way. We live in the world of negativity, and again, some people live in it more than others. With that being said, I'm looking forward to our next episode, and follow our social pages. Have a great night.